AITA for calling 911 at a family party after my husband saw a huge red flag? I hadn't seen most of those people in years. I didn't recognize several of them at all. A woman handed me a red Solo cup with iced tea. A boy ran past holding a paper plate, steering it like a wheel. There were folding chairs, tables with light-colored plastic tablecloths held down with clips, a cooler of half-melted ice, and soft rock playing from a Bluetooth speaker shoved next to a planter. On one table, they had arranged trays with pigs in a blanket, potato chips, mixed nuts, burgers and hot dogs on the grill, and some deli meat roll-ups that were already starting to dry out. Everything had that vibe of a suburban family gathering, half improvised, half for show. Festive, yes. Uncomfortable, too. It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon, and for the first hour or so it was. I was by the snack table, feigning interest in some cheese and cracker platters. Mark was next to me, holding a bottle of light beer with that closed-off expression he gets when he is being polite but is already mentally planning the drive home. My mom, Susan, was happy in her role as hostess, hugging people, wiping her tears with a paper napkin, and secretly touching up her lipstick. My dad, Robert, was near the grill, complaining about the wind as if the weather had done something personal to him. My sister Jessica, as always, managed to never end up near me. Her husband was laughing at things nobody else found funny. It was my grandfather's house in a quiet suburb outside Cleveland, but it didn't feel like his house anymore. He had it built when his small manufacturing business started doing well. It wasn't a mansion or anything like that, but it was a big house, the kind that, in that Ohio neighborhood, makes people whisper about how successful the owner was. It had a spacious backyard, a garage for several cars, and a covered patio where half the family could fit. Now they all lived there, my mom, my dad, Jessica, and her husband. I guess they weren't short on space. Mark and I had flown in from Seattle the day before. I had been asking to come see my grandfather for years, and they always gave me the same excuses. It wasn't a good time, he was tired, maybe next year would be better. Until in the spring my mom told me on the phone, if you really want to see him, come for his birthday. I held on to that. I thought maybe something had changed. I thought maybe they were letting me back in. The party was well underway when they finally brought my grandfather out to the yard in a wheelchair. Everyone clapped as if he had made a triumphant entrance. I stood still. He looked good. Too good. His hair was styled a little too carefully. His sweater didn't have a single wrinkle, and his face looked dull. It wasn't a sick face. It was a distant face, as if he were listening to something no one else could hear. I raised my hand to wave at him. He didn't respond. I told myself it was his age, that maybe he didn't react the same way anymore. My mom came over and whispered to me, he barely speaks anymore. It's very hard for him. I nodded as if I understood. Then she raised her glass and began the toast, her voice trembling just enough to make everything revolve around her. 90 years of wisdom, of hard work, and of love for this family, she said. All of this exists because of him. Several people made a tender face. A woman behind me murmured, how beautiful. Mark didn't clap. I turned to look at him. He was staring intensely at my grandfather, or rather, the man in the chair, as if he were memorizing his face. What's wrong? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. He kept staring. Mark. Nothing. And then he leaned toward me. Grab your purse. We are leaving. Don't make a face. Walk normally. I even let out a laugh out of pure bewilderment. What? Don't ask questions here. Go inside and get your purse. I looked at him expecting a smirk, a sign that it was a joke. He didn't smile. He didn't even stop looking straight ahead. Mark, we just got here. Then he finally turned slowly and looked right at me. Something is very wrong here. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. So calmly that it chilled me. As if it wasn't a suspicion. As if it was a fact. My hands went cold. I looked back at my grandfather. He wasn't moving. His hands were on the armrests, still placed there, almost decorative. Are you serious? I asked him. He was already walking toward the house. I followed him. We went up to the guest room where I had left my overnight bag. My fingers got caught on the zipper. I felt my heart in my throat. I kept thinking, if he is wrong, I am going to look ridiculous. If he is right, I don't even know where I stand. We walked out the front door. No one stopped us. No one looked up. The party was too busy with itself. At the car, Mark opened the door for me like it was nothing. He got in, started the engine, and gripped the steering wheel tightly. Then he said, "That is not your grandfather." I used to think that maybe I imagined it all. The difference. The treatment. The way things were always easier for Jessica in my house than for me. For years I told myself that I was sensitive, that I exaggerated, that I always found a way to feel out of place. I told myself that until the day Jessica turned 18 and everyone in the house acted like she was leaving forever. She was standing at the entrance with a suitcase and a full scholarship to a state university. My mom was crying as if they were about to put her on a ship in the middle of a storm. "You don't have to go," she kept repeating. "We will figure something out. Stay a little longer." 2 years earlier, when I turned 18, my dad gave me a suitcase and a nod. "You are an adult now. It's time to make your own life." That was it. No hugs. No tears. No help packing. I don't want to sound bitter. I really don't. I left, went to college, worked, and moved on. But some things stick with you. When one daughter is escorted to the door like a visitor, and the other is begged not to leave, you don't get that out of your system so easily. The funniest thing is that I didn't even have a choice about college. I knew I had to go. Not because someone pushed me, but because I needed a reason to get out of that house. My parents didn't pitch in a dime. I don't even think they really asked me what my major was. The one who helped me was my grandfather. Always in silence. Always on the sidelines. Every few months a check would arrive in the mail. Just enough to get by. Rent, groceries, the occasional emergency. No lectures. No uncomfortable questions. Sometimes just an envelope and a short note in his shaky handwriting. "I hope this helps. I am proud of you." He had no obligation. But he did it anyway. I remember him from before I even had full memories. Before I could speak properly, I already had my grandfather. He would carry me, tell me stories in a low voice, teach me things with a patience that no one else had for me. He did woodworking in his garage. He taught me how to sand a board when I was still wearing Velcro sneakers. He smelled like sawdust and mint tea. As a child, I felt like he was mine. And I was his. Maybe because, at times, he gave me the place I couldn't find in my own home. Then life got in the way. College turned into work. Work turned into Mark. And, almost without realizing it, I was already living in Seattle. It wasn't an escape. It wasn't drama. It was a job and opportunity timing. And if I am being honest, a bit of a relief. The distance made everything easier. Easier not to notice that my parents rarely called. Easier to pretend that the silence was because of the time difference. Easier not to feel that strange emptiness that conversations with Jessica always left me with. We kept in touch, of course. More or less. Emails on holidays, an occasional call, a video chat at Christmas. The last real conversation I had with my grandfather was on a video call 3 years ago. He looked older, yes, but he was still him. He asked about my job. I asked about his tomato plants. He made a joke about some squirrels stealing his harvest. After that, everything went dark. Every time I asked to speak to him, my mom came up with an excuse. That he was asleep, that he wasn't feeling well, that he had a rough night, that he would call me later. Then not even that. She just stopped answering my texts about it. And I explained it to myself however I could. People get older. They get tired. They withdraw. Maybe it was hard for him to speak. Maybe I was just making drama again. Until that party. Until Mark told me, "Grab your purse." And suddenly nothing felt imaginary anymore. We sat in the car, as if we had just left a place we weren't supposed to be. Mark still had his hands on the steering wheel. I had my seatbelt halfway on, as if finishing buckling it would make this real. "What do you mean he's not him?" Mark didn't look at me at first. "I mean exactly that. He is not your grandfather." "What are you talking about?" "I am serious." He was serene but firm. "That man in the wheelchair is not him." I looked at him as if he had told me the potato salad was bad. "What do you think? That someone put a mask on him?" "No." "Then, the ears aren't the same. Neither is the jawline. Much less the hands." I just stared at him. The ears. He finally turned to look at me. You are not understanding me. I remember faces. All the details. They don't slip past me. I can remember the face of a waiter from a restaurant we went to once 10 years ago. I don't forget a face. And certainly not ears. That man is not your grandfather, Walter. And right then my stomach dropped. I wanted to laugh. Not out of amusement. Out of pure fear. Out of pure chaos. I covered my mouth with my hand. My mind tried to find another explanation. Any explanation. Then who is it? Mark looked toward the house. Your great-uncle Richard. What? Didn't you tell me once that when he was younger he looked exactly like your grandfather? He did look like him. I had said that. But I hadn't even seen him in years. And besides, he wasn't even at the party. Or so I thought. He hadn't said hello. He hadn't come over. He hadn't said a word to me. And then it clicked. Oh my God. He has a beard, glasses, maybe some light makeup, your grandfather's clothes, the wheelchair, Mark said. It's not an elaborate disguise. That is exactly why it works. From a distance he passes. Surrounded by people, even more so. Mark. I know. Are you sure? He didn't hesitate. Yes. I leaned against the window. The glass was warm. I felt the pulse throughout my entire body. I didn't want to believe him. I wanted to go back 5 minutes, when this was still just an awkward party and I was the daughter who had come from far away, the odd one out, the one who always arrives late to her own family. That reality felt much, much safer to me. Then where is my grandfather? Mark said nothing. Where is he? The question pierced right through me. As if I were waking up with a jolt. Everything began falling into place in a horrifying way. The toasts. My mom's insistence that I not get too close. The way they had him sitting there like a prop. The fact that he didn't speak. The fact that I hadn't heard his voice in 3 years. I haven't spoken to him in 3 years, I said out loud. Mark turned. What? 3 years ago. The last time was on a video call. After that, they always told me he was asleep, tired, unwell. I thought I was overreacting, but now I don't know anymore. Mark took a deep breath. I think you have to call someone. I looked at him. The police. He nodded once. If I am wrong, I am wrong. But I am not wrong. I didn't move. I pictured my mom's face when we left. That tight little smile, the slight nod of her head. As if I were dropping by to visit a life where they no longer wanted me inside. I am going to destroy everything, I murmured. Mark looked at me finally, with a gentleness that broke me to pieces. Claire, you didn't do this. I took out my phone. It felt heavy as if it had stones inside. And I called. The patrol car arrived faster than I expected. 2 uniformed officers and a woman in a detective's suit got out. They spoke to us next to our rental car. I explained what I could. I tried to sound clear, sane, and reasonable, which was almost impossible at that moment. I know this sounds strange, but I think they are passing someone else off as my grandfather, I said. I don't know where he is and I think something is wrong. They asked me calm questions, the kind that make you uncomfortable because they seem simple, but you feel like if you answer wrong, everything falls apart. Then they walked toward the house like someone knocking for a routine matter. I stayed in the car watching. The party didn't stop immediately. Nobody screamed. Nobody ran away. It was worse. Everything became weird, murky. People kept holding plates and cups, but no one was comfortable anymore. The officers started separating people. I saw the detective talking to my mom. Her face changed instantly. She stiffened. She started moving her mouth very quickly. She shook her head and at times, tried to block their way with that authority of a hostess who thinks she is still in charge. My dad stood a few steps back, staring at the ground. Then they spoke to the man in the wheelchair. He said nothing. Afterward, they asked him for identification. My mom went into the house and came out with a wallet. It didn't help much. The officers crouched down in front of the man again and spoke to him in a low voice. He ended up looking up and saying something. Just a few words. Then he nodded. One of the officers returned to our car. Can you stay close by? We are going to need to speak with you later. Is it him? I asked. Is it my grandfather? He didn't answer that. We will be in touch. And he walked away. I sat there feeling the seconds crushing down on me. Later that same night, they asked us for a formal statement. We also found out they had found contradictions in what my family said, and that my great-uncle Richard ended up admitting to part of the deception. That was when I understood that this wasn't going to just blow over with some random explanation. That night my mom called me. I answered, and she didn't even let me speak. "How could you," she screamed, "call the police on your own family?" I didn't know if she was crying furious or both. "What did you do?" I asked her. "Where is Grandpa Walter? You don't understand anything. You weren't here. You didn't see what it was like. We did what we had to do. For him. For everyone. What did you do? You don't have the right to ask anymore. Where is my grandfather?" She stayed quiet for a second. Then she hung up. When there was a knock on our hotel room door the next morning, I thought I was going to pass out. We had stayed at a nearby hotel because from the start, Mark hadn't wanted to sleep at the family house. Not because he suspected something like this, but because he never felt comfortable there. That morning, I thanked him for insisting. They didn't knock to arrest us or interrogate us again. They came to tell me that my grandfather had passed away. They didn't say it just like that, bluntly. They explained it with that professional tone that sounds worse because it never breaks. One of the officers did almost all the talking. The detective with him kept her eyes glued on me, as if just in case I was going to make a run for it. "The information we gathered last night indicates that Mr. Walter Miller passed away in March of 2021, he said. "The family claims it was from natural causes. We also know that the death was not reported to the proper authorities or all relatives, and that there were subsequent actions to conceal the situation. The investigation remains open to look into all related matters." I sat down. My legs couldn't hold me anymore. 3 years. 3 years. And I had been sending messages, and asking if I could talk to him, and believing that maybe he was tired, or confused, or upset with me for leaving. No, he was gone, and no one told me. I don't remember exactly what I answered. I think I asked if he had been in any distress. They told me they were still investigating everything. I think I asked if the man at the party was my great-uncle Richard. They said yes. I wanted to scream, punch something, crawl under the bed and never come out. Instead I said, "Thank you," like a polite fool. Like always. A few days later the issue started leaking out of the neighborhood. First it was random comments on Facebook, rumors, and a local news blog. Then someone uploaded a shaky cell phone video showing my mom making a toast, wiping her eyes, and that man in the wheelchair pretending to listen. People did what they always do. First they shared it with shocked emojis. Then they started coming up with theories. Then they tore us all apart. I stopped reading after a while. In a single thread they called me an accomplice, ungrateful, dramatic, a gold digger. People always have an opinion. They don't need facts to do so. Then came the call from the lawyer. Not my mom's. Not the family's. My grandfather's estate attorney. "Claire, I have been trying to reach you for some time." I almost hung up on him. "Your grandfather named you as the primary beneficiary of his estate. The house, the business, and all other assets he had were legally designated to you in his will." I stared at the crooked grout line on the hotel room floor as if suddenly, it was the most important thing in the world. "This was not a secret," he told me carefully. "Your mother and your sister have known for years. We tried to locate you after his passing, but they always provided reasons why you were unavailable, saying you were traveling, that they would let you know that it wasn't a good time. And then everything fell into place in the ugliest way possible. The lies. The silence. The party. My great-uncle pretending to be my grandfather. They hadn't hidden his death just out of shame or fear of a scandal. They had hidden it so I wouldn't claim my inheritance. As long as I remained in the dark, they could keep living in his house, accessing funds from his accounts, using his name and pretending I didn't exist. I called my mom. I wasn't sure what for. Answers, I guess. Or maybe I just wanted to hear her say something that, for once, sounded like the truth. She answered on the second ring. "What do you want now?" "Since when did you know about the will?" She let out a dry laugh. "So the lawyer already got to you." "Since when?" "You were always good at showing up to take what you never earned." My throat tightened. "I asked about him every single year." "You left," she told me. You left us here with everything. With the illness, the bills, the upkeep on the house, everything. You have no idea what it was like. And that's why you buried him without telling me? We were taking care of him. You were hiding him. We were protecting him. Him. And this family. I couldn't help but laugh. Came out broken, bitter. No. You were taking from him. She hung up on me. The following weeks were heavy. Legal depositions. Interviews. Reviewing papers. Bank statements. Death certificates. The process was slow at first, and then it started moving with more force. Jessica barely showed her face at the beginning. She just sent a couple of dry texts, as if she truly didn't know what to say. Then she stopped writing. I found out later that she also gave a statement, but she was very careful not to completely implicate my mom. Richard, on the other hand, ended up cooperating more when he saw the sheer magnitude of the legal trouble. He didn't do it out of genuine remorse. He did it out of self-preservation. Even so, that crack helped bring everything to light. In the end, they confirmed that my grandfather had indeed passed from natural causes. He fell asleep and never woke up. There was no foul play. Just the peaceful end of a very old man. I didn't cry until then. Because I could finally mourn him without any other questions hanging over me. But the rest of it remained. The cover-up. The impersonation. The fraud. The money. Over the following months, the investigation nailed everything down. There was a review of documents, account management, property usage, and the failure to report a death. Authorities determined that there had been severe legal violations, manipulation of information, and financial fraud tied to his identity after his passing. My great-uncle Richard was also held accountable for his part in the deception. The fact that he cooperated was noted by the court. There was no jail time for anyone. There were legal consequences. Significant fines, court-ordered supervision, and a formal order to vacate the property. Prohibitions against touching any of my grandfather's accounts and assets. Serious repercussions. Not as spectacular as one imagines when hurting, but clear enough that they could no longer keep living off the lie. The house, the land, and the business were transferred to my name, just as my grandfather had left them. It wasn't an absurd fortune, but it was a lot. Enough to understand why they kept the charade going for so long. I didn't kick them out. The court did. They left without saying goodbye, without looking at me, without a single apology. My mom left a note on the kitchen counter. It read, "You were always good at taking from others what you didn't earn." I tore it up and threw it away. The first night I stayed in the house alone. Before flying back to Seattle to sort everything out calmly, I sat in my grandfather's armchair. I opened a bottle of wine. I put my feet on the coffee table. The house was silent. It still smelled like furniture polish and old wood. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel avenged. Not even angry. I felt tired. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like a stranger in that place. I haven't spoken to my parents again. Nor to Jessica. Not a single message. Not a single call. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. Other times I think I left too much unsaid. But there is one thing I've finally understood. I didn't ruin my family. I was just the first to stop covering up their lie. Comment. Hearing a story like this always reminds me of how important it is to protect our peace. Sometimes the hardest boundaries we have to draw are with the people closest to us. It takes a lot of courage to walk away from unhealthy dynamics and choose your mental well-being over a comfortable lie. True connections are built on respect and honesty, not manipulation or hidden agendas. You never have to apologize for standing up for the truth and protecting your own life. Healing begins the moment we stop accepting less than we deserve and start taking responsibility for our environment. I hope this serves as a gentle reminder to trust your instincts and honor your self-worth. Walking away from negativity does not mean you failed or gave up. It simply means you are finally choosing to create a safe space for your own happiness. I would love to read your thoughts on how you handle setting healthy boundaries in your own life. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.